It is your girl, and I have some explaining to do. So I know I've been gone a while. I know things look a little bit different. Okay, they look a lot different. I have a lot of explaining to do, and I will do so at the end of the video, I promise. Right now, it is time for the video that I have literally been anticipating to make since I started my channel. It's time to talk about some queer comics. Listen, so this is probably, I've been stressing about this for a while now. I've been stressing about this for years now. I really want to talk about queer comics because queerness, being queer, is very important to me. For those of you that don't know, I'm gay as fuck. Listen, I am super gay. I am hella gay. I am a very loud, proud bisexual, and it's a big part of who I am. So being able to have a platform where I can talk about and show off my favorite queer comics, that's just really important to me, okay? I have been curating this list for a while now, and listen, it was very hard for me to narrow it down to just a few books because there are so many queer comic books out there that I love. And that's okay because we can make more videos and more content. But for now, during Pride Month, and actually during every month, these are the queer comic books that I think you should be reading. So right off the bat, we're going to start strong. We're going to start with Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Listen, I love Heartstopper. At this point in the game, it feels like everybody loves Heartstopper, and that's a good thing. It's got a whole bunch of books. It's got its own series on Netflix. Everybody is talking about Heartstopper, and I've even talked about Heartstopper myself on my channel. Heartstopper is a wonderful coming-of-age story about two young men by the name of Charlie and Nick. They go to an all-boys school, and listen, they just have a big old gay crush on each other. I love these two little babies so much. They make my heart soar. Absolutely. I love the fact that while this book does represent a queer couple, it also represents a bisexual man because we find out in Heartstopper that Nick, one of our leading characters, is not only questioning his sexuality, but questioning his identity and the idea of being a bisexual man. Because listen, bisexuals, as a bisexual, we're weirdos. To be a bisexual man, that's even stranger. I'm not saying bisexual men are weird, but I'm saying that it's few and far in between, and it's not something that we show off enough. So the idea that Heartstopper takes its main character and says, hey, you're bisexual, as the resident comic book, queer comic, and bisexual, it is extremely important to me that we get a main character like Nick who is showcased as that sexuality. Not only that, but Heartstopper is just delightfully charming. It's one of those books that I find myself reading often and over again. It's a book where I find myself crying because of how cute that is. I didn't think that was possible, but it's definitely possible to cry because something is so cute. And not only that, but Heartstopper, while it does have a queer-facing, or rather a gay-facing couple as its main cast, the rest of the characters in this book are all different genders and sexualities. We have a lesbian couple that's friends with Nick and Charlie. We also have a trans character as one of their best friends. And listen, Heartstopper is just delightful. If you're not reading it, what are you doing? It started off as a webcomic and then quickly became its own selling comic. There are 4 books out right now with a 5th one on the way. Like I said, there is a Netflix show that you should be watching because listen, when I say that this show is probably the most comic accurate adaptation we have ever gotten in comic book media, yes, I am talking to the entirety of the MCU and everything that DC has ever done and everything else in between. I feel like I'm starting off with a bang with this list, but Heartstopper, listen, you gotta read yourself some Heartstopper, okay? It's a good book. Would I tell you wrong? Would I tell you wrong? During Pride Month, would I tell you wrong? That's what I thought. So listen, I've said it before. I feel like I don't talk enough about manga on my channel. And I was like, listen, I'm going to be featuring manga during Pride Month, okay? And what better way to showcase queer manga than Road Queen, Eternal Road Trip to Love by Mira Ong. Listen, I know I'm saying it wrong. I'm trying my best. It is Pride Month. Let me do my best. This is one of my favorite mangas of all time, okay? This was a original book that was kickstarted and then it was published and released by Seven Seas Entertainment. And listen, this book is gay. It's a very gay book. Every book on this list is going to be gay. So Leo is the resident bad girl of Princess Andromeda High School. And listen, Princess Andromeda High School, Princess Andromeda Academy, that's a pretty gay name. I don't know to tell you, but that sounds gay to me. I want to attend that school. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So Leo is the resident bad girl, and she ends up having her motorcycle stolen. Her precious motorcycle, Bethany, mind you. Yes, she has named her bike Bethany. It's very cute. It's very gay. Her precious bike has been stolen by the mysterious Vega, who is also very, very cute, and I would like to date both of these ladies. But her motorcycle is stolen by the mysterious Vega, and Vega tells Leo, hey, I'm not going to give you your bike back until you prove to me that you are girlfriend material and that you can treat women with respect, and you can prove to me that you are a good girlfriend. Sounds easy. Except for the fact that Leo is literally the queerest fuckboy I have ever seen in comics and possibly in real life. Listen, I'm not the one that's saying that, okay? The book itself calls Leo a queer fuckboy. Listen, I have proof. I have receipts. I absolutely love Road Queen Eternal Trip to Love because it is just a really cute queer lesbian rom-com. It's very cute, it's very funny, and it's possibly one of my favorite books, and I feel like it's one of those queer titles, it's one of those manga titles that I feel doesn't get enough love. I feel like every book that Mira Ong does, whether it's Vampire Blood Drive or Goodbye Battle Princess Peony, they're all extremely queer. Like everything that Mira Ong does is just really gay, and I love that for her, I love that for me, I love that for you, because you are going to read Road Queen, and then you're going to read Vampire Blood Drive, and you're going to read Goodbye Battle Princess Peony. Man, that is a mouthful, but listen, it's a gay book. It's very gay, it's very cute, it's very funny. You're going to read it over and over again. Trust me. So Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang is a book that I feel like gets talked about a lot, but also does not get talked about enough. Does that make sense? No? Okay, it's fine. So Prince and the Dressmaker is published by First Second Comics, and listen here, I'm going to tell you right now, everything that First Second publishes is pretty gay. So you can honestly just go to their lineup, pick a book, and boom, it's perfect for Pride Month. Prince and the Dressmaker is a very wonderful, I feel like all ages, coming of age story. I feel like it is the one book on this list that can cater to an audience of any age, and it's just queer delightfulness. So Prince and the Dressmaker is one of the few books on this list that I feel like explore the idea of not only gender identity, but gender fluidity as well. And I think that that is something that, especially in queer media, is something that we don't talk about enough. Not only that, but to see that in all ages friendly queer media, I feel like that's even stranger. Following the story of young Prince Sebastian and his friend turned seamstress Frances, Prince Sebastian is this young royal that is fit with all the duties of being a prince. However, he's got a little secret, and it's a very queer secret. Prince Sebastian, with the help of his friend Frances, goes out into the middle of the night and moonlights as the wonderful Lady Crystalia. And it is essentially him dressing up in drag, dressing up in these fancy, elaborate costumes, where he essentially becomes an icon of the underground fashion scene. And he does this all with the help of his young friend. Now, I love this book because, again, as I talked about before, I feel like we don't get a ton of books that explore the idea of gender identity, gender fluidity, sexual identity, sexual fluidity, and the fact that the Prince and the Dressmaker manages to do so, while also managing to do so in a catering way to an all ages audience. Because I will say, out of all the books that are on this list, Prince and the Dressmaker is that one book that caters to, I feel like, everybody. So honestly, this book, it's gorgeous. It's so pretty. I love Jen Wang's artwork. I love the message that she tells in her story. Jen Wang really knocked it out of the park when she created this book. And honestly, I wish we had more books like this. Now, Prince and the Dressmaker is published by First Second, but we have another book published by First Second, and that is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, written by Mariko Tamaki and illustrated by Rosemary Valera O'Connell. I love this book. This is one of my favorite books on this list, and as I mentioned before, Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, alongside The Prince and the Dressmaker, these books are both published by First Second. Now, I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. Everything published by First Second is basically gay. I'm not even kidding. I can throw up on the screen the amount of queer content this publisher has offered us. And honestly, if I had it my way, I would just spend all of Pride Month talking about First Second and the books that they publish. But listen, I had to limit myself to 2, okay? 2 books, 2 queer books, First Second Publishing. I love you guys to death. Please sponsor me. So I love Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me because it tells a queer story that we don't see often. Because what we see oftentimes in a lot of queer stories, and that includes a lot of the queer stories on this list, is a lot of queer stories deal with the idea of coming out, finding yourself, coming forth with your gender and queer identity. Listen, I'm not a big fan of stories like that. I feel like they've been done to death. I like books where the characters are queer for the sake of being queer, because guess what? People are queer for the sake of being queer. There's no different, whether it's a comic book or it's real life. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me follows the story of Freddie as she explores a toxic relationship with Laura Dean, and she starts to realize that Laura Dean is toxic and that Laura Dean is not good with her and that she needs to break this cycle. And listen, this book could have honestly been pictured in a straight passing relationship. It could have easily been a male character and a female character at its forefront, but instead the creative team here decided to do so as a lesbian relationship. And I think that that is extremely powerful because it proves to us, and we know that this is a fact, that Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me, and toxic relationships happen whether you are queer, whether you are straight, whether you are bi, whether you are gay. Toxic relationships can happen to anyone. So the idea that they were able to paint this with queer characters, I think, is extremely important. And it also gets us to look at the story deeper than I feel like if it was a straight passing relationship. Now, I will give a fair warning. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me gets very heavy at certain points. I personally, every time I read this book, find a lot of times where I have to pace myself, take a break, take a step back from it, and that's okay. Because not every story, queer or otherwise, can be happy. And that's why comics are great. I honestly love this book. Again, it's kind of like Prince and the Dressmaker, where I feel like a lot of people talk about this book, but at the same time, nobody talks about this book. And I really just love this story. I think it is gorgeous. I love the fact that this book is done entirely in pink, therefore kind of symbolizing lesbian relationships. And I really, really like that aspect. And I just think that as somebody who has gone through toxic relationships, even at a very young age, that this book is extremely relatable and could be relatable to almost anybody who has gone through that situation. And even if you haven't, I think it's just a really great coming of age story that we need to talk about more in comics. Nobody talks about My Brother's Husband by Gangora, and that makes me upset because I absolutely love this book. Listen, I'm hitting you with 2 manga books on our queer recommendation list, not just one, okay? I'm hitting you with the double. My Brother's Husband follows the story of Yaichi. He's a divorced stay-at-home dad raising his daughter as a single father. However, everything changes when one day after the death of his brother's husband shows up. And Mike Flanagan, listen, he's a big beefy bear. He is unapologetically Canadian and we love him. Listen, I would die for Mike Flanagan, okay? He is a precious boy and I love him. So Yaichi and his world gets flipped upside down because he has distanced himself from his brother after becoming queer because, listen, in Japan, it's not really a big thing to be queer and to be openly queer. So I love this book because it discusses that. It discusses the relationship between his brother and himself. It discusses the relationship between Yaichi and his now brother-in-law, who is, again, unapologetically queer. And what I really like about this story is that we get to explore the idea of queerness and the view of queerness from a young person. So Yaichi has a young daughter named Kana, and Kana takes Mike with open arms. She loves Mike. She thinks he's the best person in the world. I mean, who wouldn't? Look at the guy. But she loves Mike, and she looks at the idea of queerness and starts to question, well, why can't 2 ladies marry each other? Why can't 2 men raise a baby? And I think that that's something interesting that, again, we don't see happen in media. Think about it. Kids that are raised around queer people don't think about this stuff very often. And so it kind of gives us deeper meaning into the side of queerness. And not only queerness, but maybe queerness from the perspective of a relative, or maybe from somebody who doesn't understand it. And I really like the character development that we get to see our main character go through as he kind of learns where he was coming from. He kind of learns where his brother came from and learns the relationship that he missed out on with him while learning it through Mike. And this story is just really, really cute. Apparently, there was also a live action adaptation of this, which is supposedly really, really good. I still haven't watched it yet. I don't know how. My Brother's Husband is just really good, okay? I want y'all to read it. I need to reread it, and then I need to sit down and watch the live action movie. Simple as that. Bolero is a little book. Okay, it's a big book by Wyatt Kennedy and Luana Vecchio. Bolero is a little book that means so much to me. It's a book that I have talked about quite frequently on my Sunday live show with Jennifer over at Casually Comics and Comic Books Will Break Your Heart. And listen, Bolero almost did not make this list, okay? And not because it's not unapologetically queer, because listen, this book is gay as fuck, but because I was saving Bolero for something else, something much more special. But as I was putting this list together, I was like, I cannot talk about queer comics without talking about Bolero. In Bolero, we're met with Devon and her now ex-girlfriend Natasha. And Devon is heartbroken. Devon can't live without Natasha. And she finds herself swimming through literally the multiverse. She's met by a giant white cat who basically tells her, here's the key to the multiverse. You can jump through the multiverses literally as many times as you want, but you can only do so 59 times. Not only that, but if you find one that you like and then you skip to the next one and want to go back, nope, you can't do that either. And so it's literally a search for her perfect life, and her perfect life with her now ex-girlfriend Natasha, who, by the way, is an openly trans character. Bolero is special because not only does it explore queerness, because our main character Devon, as she's hopping through the multiverses, there are some universes where she's actually a male. There are some universes where she's with Natasha. There's even a universe where she's with a male character. I love the idea that explores happiness through gender identity, through gender sexuality. But in the end of everything else, this book is about loving yourself and loving who you are and coming to terms with who you are. And I feel like that can kind of be a gateway for queerness, where it doesn't matter how much you explore. It doesn't matter who you end up with. That no matter what, at the end of the day, as long as you're happy, that's what's most important. Listen, I could probably talk about this book and dissect every little piece about it, but I'm not going to because, again, I'm saving it for something special. This is a book from Image Comics that came out this year and is not published in trade yet, but is releasing in August. So listen, when August rolls around, I'm going to need y'all to go out and buy Bolero. And then I'm going to need you to DM me and talk to me about it because it is a very, very good book. I can't believe we've gotten this far into the video without talking about a book from DC or Marvel. Well, guess what? It's time to break that cycle. It is time for me to talk about Superman, Son of Kal-El. Listen, hear me out. Superman. Gay. Queer. Yes. Superman, Son of Kal-El by Tom Taylor is probably one of the most important books to come out within the past decade, if not the past century. Listen, I went there. I love this book so much. So Superman, Son of Kal-El is not your average Superman book. Instead of following Clark Kent, who we all know and sometimes love, it follows his son, Jonathan Kent. And Jonathan Kent is kind of different from his dad. Listen. He gets things done. He takes things from a millennial or Gen Z perspective and says, hey, we have to get this done. Now, why am I talking about a little book called Superman during Pride Month? I don't know. Maybe it's because its main character is confirmed queer and confirmed a bisexual character? Probably. Listen, when Tom Taylor announced that he was making Jonathan Kent queer, I cried, because not only did he make him queer, he made him bisexual. And I feel like we've already talked about this, where I said the importance of bisexual men and the importance of bisexual male representation. But listen, Tom Taylor and friends, you guys hit this on the head, okay? I love this book to itty bitty pieces. I love Jonathan and his relationship with Jay. I love the idea that in certain issues we get to explore the idea of burnout and how sometimes you can't take the world on your own. Sometimes you have to let people take a part of the world for you. And I think that is explored very well with the relationship between Jay and John. Not only that, but in one of the more recent issues, issue 10 to be precise, we get to see this scene where John is finally going to come out to his mother. And it is probably one of the most important things I have... You're rude and you're destroying things. Can you please leave? One of my favorite things to happen in this book happens particularly in issue 10. At this point in time, John is in a full-on relationship with Jay, but he has not told his mother, Lois Lane. And he finally works up the courage to tell his mother, hey, I am queer. And we get this really wonderful splash page where she basically admits that she has known the whole time and she's going to support him. Listen, as somebody who, as a queer kid, coming out to their parents and kind of being joked about it, it kind of hits home to see when characters that I really love and that I tend to resonate with, it's really important when those characters have a mom figure or a dad figure where they're supportive to the end of time. Listen, I wish Lois Lane was my mom, okay? I was never a big fan of Lois Lane until this book, okay? Is Lois Lane being the queer, proud parent, like, my favorite thing to ever happen in comics? Probably. Do I wish that she was my mom? Absolutely. I love this book. I don't even like Superman, but I love this book. This book made me love Superman. It made me love the idea of Superman. If you doubt me, you shouldn't. Have I ever steered you wrong? So we've got one last book on the list. I know it's sad, but trust me, it's never over. Queer books will be forever. But the last book I want to talk about is a book that I've talked about previously on this channel, but I feel like I can't talk about queer comics and queer representation without talking about Barbalian the Red Planet. I know, hear me out. Mars, why are you talking about a spin-off from the Black Hammer universe, which is basically a spin-off of superheroes in general? However, Barbalian the Red Planet, written by Jeff Lemire, Tate Brombell, and illustrated by Gabriel Hernandez, is probably one of the most important pieces of queer media that you, I, or anyone will ever consume. So for those of you that don't know, Barbalian, who was featured in the Black Hammer series, is essentially an homage character to Martian Manhunter. He comes from the planet of Mars, he moonlights as a cop, he has shape-shifting powers, and he's also queer. And in this book, we kind of get an origin story for him, at least an origin story in terms of his queerness. I know, I said, I don't like books where you find your identity and your queerness, yada, yada, yada. But Barbalian does so during the 1980s AIDS crisis as its backdrop, and it fills itself with so much rich queer lore and content that it honestly makes my heart comburst. I've already cried on camera once talking about this book. I'm not going to do it again, but this book is seriously a masterclass at what it does. It takes the idea of sexuality and it roots it into our history. It roots it into queer history. And we get to see Barbalian fall in love with another man. We get to see Barbalian fall in love with the queer culture as he finds himself in underground dance halls that are being raided by the police. And he finds himself questioning the job that he's been working for all this time. And he starts to question his place back home. I love this book, and if you had told me that a Black Hammer spinoff title would be as impactful to queer media as it is, I would honestly call you crazy. Now hear me out. You don't have to read Black Hammer to know anything about it. This book really is standalone. It sets itself up really, really well, and it basically tells you, here's this character, here's the queerness, love me forever. This book is so important, and I love Tate Brombell for everything that he put into this book, for all the history he put into this book. There's wonderful back material if you pick up the trade that talks about the history, especially revolving around the AIDS crisis, revolving around Stonewall, and I just feel like these are important things that we must talk about, not only during Queer Pride Month, but all the time. That's my pitch. Read the book and love it. That is it. That is everything that I have for queer comics. I mean, listen, I could talk on and on and on and on about queer comics. But don't think that this is going to be the last queer comic video I'm going to be making, okay? There's going to be a lot more after this. I've been waiting to make this video for literal years, and I hope that it lived up to your expectations. Now, before I go, I kind of want to talk about my long disappearance, because it was kind of wrong. I shouldn't have done it. As you can see, I'm in a new setup. I have moved in with my partner. I am now living on my own. I am not in my parents' basement. I am also doing a Sunday show every single weekend with my comic book BFF Jennifer over at Casually Comics, and Comic Books Will Break Your Heart. But listen, I love you guys. I love the fact that I disappeared for 8 months, 9 months, and that you guys still stuck with me. I'll be honest, I sat down a month or two ago and tried to film a video and was upset with myself because I'd been gone for so long, and I just felt like I had lost the spark, and I felt like there was a part of me that wanted to quit YouTube forever. I felt like I was too busy doing the Sunday show, felt like I was too busy doing other comic journalist stuff, and I just didn't know how I could keep the YouTube channel. But then I thought back to every time you guys have supported me, and I realized I love what I do. I love being here with you guys. I love spreading my comic book knowledge. I love spreading my comic book passion. Vigorously, violently telling you guys what books you should and should not be reading sometime. And listen, I'll be honest with you, I was hit with a blast of inspiration, and I feel like I am finally back. And I just thank you guys for sticking with me. For those of you that still support my Patreon, you guys are insane. I love you guys so much. New, old, been around for a while followers. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I can't wait to see you in the next video.